In this lecture, we're going to apply the concepts that we learned in Chapter 1, Section 7 to our SavageScan utility and validate using a regular expression user input for the IP address. All right, jumping into SavageScan, we're currently prompting for the IP address, but we're not checking if it's a valid IP, and therefore we could scan inappropriate IP addresses, which we want to avoid. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment at the top so we can start importing our modules. And we'll import RE so that we can use regular expressions. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to understand the requirements of a valid IP address. So I'm going to just jump in where I just did a Google search for valid IP address requirements, and this talks about the IP address. Now, a version IP4 IP address is 4 octets, and an octet has 1 byte of data or 8 bits, and therefore the range for the numbers in each octet is 0 to 255. Now these octets are separated by a decimal or a period, and that's what makes up an IPv4 address. So more specifically, here are the requirements for IP4. There must be 4 numbers, which are called octets, separated by dots. Each number must be between 0 and 255 inclusive, and characters are only digits 0 through 9 and periods, plus a hyphen for ranges are allowed. Now, we're not going to worry about the hyphen for ranges right now. We'll work on this later. But for now, we're just going to check for valid IP addresses without ranges. We're going to make sure that there are no leading zeros. So numbers like 01 in an octet or 00 in an address are invalid, and we have some examples. So what we can do is jump on to regex101.com. I've put several IP addresses here. Some are valid and some are not. Now I've selected the language on the left here as Python, so it gives us the ability to go ahead and start working on a regular expression. So we're going to anchor to the front side of with a caret, meaning that we want this to start with digits. It has to be a word boundary. So the first thing we need to do is look for the ranges of 250 through 255. So I'm going to create a group here, and we can use the square brackets to create a range for 0 through 5. That's the last digit. So we'll start this over here. We want to start with a 2, then a 5, right? These are explicit matches. So there must be a 2, must be a 5, and then we want to use square brackets to set a range. Now the last character could be anything between 0 to 5. This covers 255, and then I can close that group. Now notice here that we get one match so far. So it matches 255, but all these other IPs are not matching. All right, the next thing we need to do is account for the range of 240 through 249, or actually 200 through 249. So to do that, I'm going to use an pipe here. The pipe is the equivalent boolean to or, right? So that's, we can have 250 through 255, or this next set of range here. So we'll do 2 followed by a range of 0 to 4 because we want 200 through 249. That's the second digit, followed by any digit. So we can use backslash D. So we want 2 followed by any digit between 0 through 4, followed by any digit. This will cover the range of 200 through 249. So the last range that we need to cover is the range of 0 through 199. So we're going to start with a 1 because we want to make sure there's no leading zeros. But after the 1, we're going to make this optional, right? So we use the question mark that says either one or more, or excuse me, 0 or 1 occurrences of the previous, which is a 1. So this matches the previous token between 0 and 1 times. Then we're going to follow that by a slash D because we can have 100 in this case. And we want that also to occur 0 or 1 times, followed by slash D, which would be required. Now this one, we have to have one digit, at least one digit in this octet. So we're going to match the digits between 0 through 9 at least one time. These other two are optional, but we want to match this at least one time. So notice that we're matching 192, we're matching 10, and it's currently matching 99 right now as part of this, but once we add the rest of the regular expression, this will no longer match. The next thing we need is we need to follow, either one of these will be followed by a period. So we're going to use backslash to escape the period, and this will start matching more appropriately. Notice that 999 no longer matches because we're using this slash period. So now this is one octet. So I'm going to wrap this in parentheses as a group. So we're capturing this whole thing as a group. Now, if you notice, this happens 3 times, right? A group, this octet followed by a period, that's 1. This octet followed by a period is 2. And then this octet followed by a period is 3, followed by an octet. So to capture the 3 periods, we can repeat this first group 3 times. Now notice how we're getting a match on 192.168.1 dot. So we have this match, which is matching our regular expression so far. Now the last thing we need to match is everything up to the period. So we can just take this group and paste it here. Let me try that again. Copy this group because we just need to match the octet. And then finally, we want to anchor on this. So we still have one problem here. We're matching on 00 here, and that's because we have a digit. We need to change this to bracket 1-9 bracket. And we want to make that optional. So now that no longer matches these IPs with leading zeros, and that fixes our issue there. And now we have a valid regular expression to check for IP addresses. So let's take this regular expression and go into our Python code, and we'll call this regex, or valid IP pattern. And we'll use R to make it a regular expression. And we'll paste in our pattern. The next thing we want to do is create a regular expression object. So we'll just call this R, or we can even just say regex. And then we can say we want to compile our pattern. So we'll do re.compile our pattern, so valid IP pattern. And that gives us a regular expression object that we can use with this compiled pattern for matching. And let's take all this and put it in the appropriate place. So this is going to be down here. So what we're doing is creating regular expression object to validate IP. We'll paste in our regular expression and our regular expression object, and now we can actually do some comparing here. So then we prompt for the IP, and now we can say if regex.match the passed in the IP the user enters, then we'll print scanning. Otherwise, else we'll print invalid IP. We'll go ahead and save this and run our Savage Scan tool. So we'll jump into the terminal and I'll use Python 3, Savage Scan, and it's prompting us. So let's put an invalid IP. So 333.1.1.1, and that is invalid IP. Now let's put a valid IP in, 192.168.1.1, and now we get scanning IP. Now let's try with leading zeros, 192.168.01.1, and that is invalid, which is correct. And let's try with zeros. Let's try IP with 0, so 10.0.0.1, and now we get scanning. So now we're doing user input validation for valid IP addresses. So in the next lecture, we'll go ahead and jump into, let's take a look here, the PyFiglet module.